swath of it going through everywhere here. So we start with Janie Maxwell, the Executive Director of the Illinois Farmers Market Association, and we'll look at Illinois farmers markets, but we're going to look at farmers markets throughout the Midwest and see what we can determine what else is going on and how they're opening or how they're not opening during the COVID phase. So we hope you stick around for that. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki, temporarily on the phone. We hope to fix that during the break. We will be right back.
Power.com.
Shelter in place now, you better not roam. Bum, 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 bum. It's the pandemic polka.
Beautiful. You're looking good, Eddie.
Pritzker and Lightfoot, please stay in your home. Bum, 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 bum. It's the pandemic polka.
Pandemic polka, Eddie.
It started in Wuhan, now it's round the globe. When markets are La Vida Loca, let's all grab a cafe mocha as we do the pandemic polka. Come on, everybody, dance.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Polka Time here on the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. You had to know that was going to happen at some point. At some point, we were going to get into the polka stuff. That's Eddie Carosa, the king of Chicago polka, with Tom LaTourette, and that's the pandemic polka. There will be more on the show like that today. And I got to thank one of my listeners who sent that to me this week, and I said, "Oh yeah, I got a polka local. Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna play that." So Andrew Fedorowski in Evanston. Wait, he gets a ding. I don't know if you could even hear that through the telephone, but how are you doing there, Peggy? You're on the Zoom machine.
I'm the only person I can see here. I can see Janie's name. I can see Randall's name, your name. I can see me. Images aren't on Facebook yet, but I'm here. Yay.
Okay, well, Janie's there too, right? Janie, you can speak.
Janie is. She has no video. There's a Zoom here.
That's okay.
So we're ready to go.
Let's do it. Janie is the Executive Director of the Illinois Farmers Market Association. And by the way, Peggy, let me know if I'm speaking too far or too close to the microphone on the phone, or if I'm muffling it, or if I drop it in my coffee, I'll let you know, okay?
Okay.
This isn't exactly the way we planned the show to start, but here we are.
Radio in a pandemic.
Yeah, that's right. Here we go. I'm feeling a little pandemic right now. The Executive Director of the Illinois Farmers Market Association. It connects Illinois farmers markets, market managers, producers, consumers. Consumers, that means you guys who are all out there now waiting to get into the farmers markets as they slowly open up in Illinois. I want to say something at the outset, Janie. Hang on just a second before we get to you, because it's about making choices during this situation, and especially as some states are opening up. Some of them wisely, some of them not so wisely, like the good folks in Wisconsin who kind of stepped off the pier and into they actually stepped off a cliff. And we'll see what happens there in Wisconsin. But last week I talked about having gone out to a store for the first time in weeks, in like 2 months. And I think I used the word terrified. And I want to roll that back just a little bit. Because I heard somebody this week say something that I thought was really important, which is about the pandemic. And it was, one, that we need to be smart as we do this, and we slowly roll out, and Janie will be telling us what farmers markets are doing to protect you, their customers, and to protect themselves in just a second. But the other word is RESPECT, respect. And that's respect for this virus, this coronavirus. The coronavirus, and a lot of people have said this, I'm not the first, this has been said a million times, but I'm going to repeat it. The virus doesn't care. Doesn't care if you're bored, doesn't care if you're stir crazy, doesn't care if the economy is going into the tank, does not care. So you need to respect this virus. So I say you don't need to fear it necessarily. You don't need to be terrified. You need to have some proper respect. That means A, social distancing. It means B, masks. And a lot of people are going out there now without masks, and I don't know what they're thinking. Peggy, do you have any idea what they're thinking when they go into a bar without a mask? And it's like yesterday, it was a serious issue. Today, it's not.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what they're thinking as they're going into a bar in general right now in the pandemic, but I think some of it is there's so much confusion. You know, this person says wear a mask. This says don't wear a mask, like our show opening from last week. It's confusing. Do we wear it? Does it help? Does it hurt? But I know,
exactly.
Like with the farmers markets, state of Illinois says we're wearing a mask. So that's what the farmers markets are asking everyone to do.
So, and the way I look at it, and you're right, Peggy, the way I would put it is there is no national plan, period. All right? Which means that smart people like Janie Maxwell and smart governors and smart mayors have to do the best they can because there's no leadership on this at all. Period. Okay. I got getting off my soapbox. Let's talk specifics with Janie Maxwell from the Illinois Farmers Market Association. How are you doing? Let me ask you that first, Janie.
Well, I'm doing very well, so thank you. But we're working really hard here trying to get farmers markets to open and to open safely.
Exactly, and that is how we do it. At the outset, before we get into the specifics of how you're going to do that, I was wondering, because I didn't find it when I was doing my research, is there a comprehensive list yet of when and which farmers markets will open in Illinois?
No, and probably this season, the best source of information on farmers markets is probably social media. Because what we're finding is it's one thing to keep up with your farmers market listing during a typical season. And we have a map on our website at ilfma.org that has a map of the farmers markets across Illinois. But to find out if your farmers market is opening and what they're asking of their customers and which vendors are going to be available to you, that's really going to happen through social media right now.
Okay. And in that regard, well, we know that for one thing, the Evanston Farmers Market opened slowly the other week.
As did Palatine.
I imagine that.
Yes, we're seeing more and more markets open each week. It's typical in Northern Illinois that we don't see markets open until mid-May, early June anyway. So we're trying to learn from the lessons that we've seen, let's say, in some of the further downstate markets, or maybe some of our winter markets that were actually in operation when COVID-19 hit and remained in operation. And so they've kind of set a great example. And what we've been trying to do as an association is tell their stories and have their market managers share with other market managers and interested people what it is that they did to make their market successful. What kind of things did they have to do to get their market open? And then what kind of policies and procedures have they put into place to be successful? Now, farmers markets we think we have about 300 plus markets in the state, and each market is as unique as the community that hosts it. So there is no cookie cutter for farmers markets, even in a normal season. But each market reflects the needs and the wants of the community. And so we've been trying to learn from the great examples of markets that have been opening and opening successfully across the state. And we do know that the Chicago proper markets have stated that they are closed through May 30th. And so that is what the city of Chicago is doing, although there is a farmers market collective of Chicago Farmers Market Collective that is publishing on their website a comprehensive list of the markets in Chicago, and then how you might connect with each of those individual markets and potentially the producers from those markets. So we're just starting to see different models, and that's why I say social media is so important right now, because every single market is doing things a little bit differently.
And it's a bit of a challenge, I think, in some cases for people who can't access the social media, who might need to be, the people who need it the most that are on the internet, say at a library that's also closed.
Exactly. So it is a challenge. And I guess word of mouth is another way, finding out from a neighbor or friend what they can find out about the local market scene. But it is a challenge right now. And I think our market managers are actually doing a fantastic job trying to, in many cases, they're recreating a whole market. They had a plan, they had a system, and in some of our markets, the markets are run by volunteers, not even a staff member. So they're trying to put together a market that works within their local community, that follows the rules that their jurisdiction is putting forth, and then bring that every single week. It'd be one thing if it was a one-off. We put all this time and this effort in, and then at the end of the day, you get to go home and put your feet up. But you have to reboot and get ready for the next week, because most of our farmers markets meet weekly over about a 28 week season.
I was interested in when you talked about the organization of Chicago markets. That's separate from the Illinois Farmers Market Association?
Yeah, they're, the state level Farmers Market Association, we're a membership-based organization, and we do a lot with education and training, promotion of markets, and then also with advocacy, trying to make sure that the barriers to running a successful farmers markets get addressed. And so within that, you have different regions or parts of the state, and in the Chicagoland region, the Chicago Farmers Markets Collective has determined that they have some of the same similar challenges, and so they're just working together to try and streamline some of that. And many of them share same vendors, and so it also works in that regard.
Is there a place you can connect to that?
Yeah.
Is there a place you can? Is there a website? Is there a Facebook page?
They have a website. It's chicagofarmersmarketcollective.org. And then on that webpage, you'll find all the partners, and then any of those that have an online presence right now, because we know there are no physical markets, that have an online presence for how you might connect with specific vendors, they're listed, and that's updated regularly. So if you're in the Chicagoland region and you've been dependent on a market within the city, this is a great resource for you, and I highly recommend you go there and check it out.
I'm putting that up on the Facebook feed right now.
Great.
Now, and we'll probably be getting a little bit more into this, but for the online markets where people can be ordering, I know there's been an issue with SNAP programs and link programs, which are limiting some of the access again to food.
Right. Yeah, one of the great things that farmers markets do is provide food access, and especially in communities that have challenges with food access. And so through the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or LINK here in Illinois, there is a program that is offered that through farmers markets that you get you are authorized to accept LINK. And then there's also a match program through Link Up Illinois that allows a doubling of that benefit up to usually between $20 and $25, which is a huge benefit to our LINK users across the state, and especially in the city of Chicago. So the online system is not approved for LINK users. And so many of the markets, even as I talk to markets that are opening downstate, one of their reasons for having maybe they have a drive-through market, maybe they have a curbside pickup market, but they often will add the feature of being able to swipe your LINK card on site, because that's a really high value to a number of communities trying to offer that. Because right now it has to be a physical on-site swipe of that LINK card in order to use it.
I'm going to let you follow up on that, Peggy. I've been tweaking dials here, so have at it.
Yes, for those who are just tuning in, Zoom has worldwide outages today. So that's why we're not on Zoom. But we are on Facebook and we are on the radio. So if you're just catching up, trying to figure out what's going on here. So I read that only 7 states are able to take online. So is that something that's being fast-tracked? I know that there's a bill that had gone through the Illinois House, but is that going anywhere to kind of push it, or is it just sitting there?
Well, we have a couple layers to this issue. One is you need to, at a state level, be approved for online SNAP or link sales.
Mhm.
And so here in Illinois, there's a process for requesting that. And so there are some hiccups in that for the state of Illinois that they are working on, I think, pretty, aggressively. But the bigger issue is that even once that is approved, that would only be for big box stores or like Amazon.
Ooh,
And
wow.
so there is a federal need for legislation that would allow farmers markets to be part of the online service for the SNAP or the link benefits. So I'm worried about the 2020 season, about whether or not we can do something quickly enough. And so that's why we're really encouraging farmers markets to think about ways that they might add some sort of face-to-face contact. It can be touchless. It can be, within the social distance.
I'll tell you what, Janie, I'm going to have to hold on a second. We got to get to a break here. We'll be back with Janie Maxwell. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malone.
Stay safe.
In line at the checkout, so close I hear you breathe. Move back or I'll freak out. We'll both get asked to leave. I get that you're friendly and just want to say hi, but you could be deadly. Your moist breath in my eye. Don't stand so close to me.
Don't stand so close to me, please. Welcome back.
Somebody had to do that one.
With Peggy. Well, we did the original. We had the police version, and it only made sense that there would be many, many more versions of that particular song. And that sort of leads us right into this part of our conversation with Janie Maxwell, Executive Director of the Illinois Farmers Market Association. By the way, if you just tuned in, Zoom is down. Zoom is down. Zoom is down. Worldwide. Zoom is down. You knew that was going to happen at some point, and so we've got
Zoom down.
Our excellent engineers, Randall and Michael, running around like crazy, getting people on the phone. Although the weird thing is, Peggy, you've been grandfathered into Zoom, apparently.
Yeah, and Janie, and I can see myself on Zoom, but I guess Randall can't. So everybody gets our photos online.
So this is a plea to anybody else with a competing app. Get it up and running. Of course, we'll have a competing app at about the same time as we get a vaccine for the COVID-19 virus. So that's the way that's going to work. And people are doing songs about Zoom conferences. Wow, it's a good thing it's a Sunday, huh? Except we got radio shows on Sunday. So I'm on the telephone, on the cell phone here. And Janie, I wanted to get into the specifics of what you're doing, because we know that the farmers markets are important for keeping farms together and giving, having customers. I got some numbers. If folks go to my website, MikeNowak.net, and look at the blog, according to a Farmers Market Coalition member survey, 74% of respondents reported decreased income during COVID. 93% report added costs, including the purchase of PPE for market staff, rental of more hand washing stations, new software or services, and additional staff to rearrange market layouts and monitor customer traffic. So even though in places some of the farmers markets are up and they're trying to make it work, it's still really tough, isn't it, Janie?
It's a lot of work, and it is some added expense. But farmers markets are trying to be resilient and find ways around that, and to get the opportunity for local product to be sold to the community, because that's really what farmers markets are about. We've enjoyed a season where farmers markets were about so much more than the transaction of buying food or food related and ag products. But now we're going kind of back to our roots and making sure that farmers markets open and that there's an opportunity for that type of purchase to take place, because we believe that farmers markets are the best place to buy local products. It sends far more money back to your farmer. The money that is spent stays in the community. I think the food at a farmer's market tastes better. I think it probably has a higher nutritional value. There's so many reasons to shop at a farmer's market. And what we're seeing actually is, even though there are maybe fewer people going to a market right now, farmers that are finding their way to a farmer's market are probably selling more than they ever have, because consumers are recognizing that there's a much shorter supply chain from food that comes from a farm to a farmer's market to your table, rather than through the commercial ag system or the commercial food system. And then we've also seen some breaks and some issues with securing product within that system. And so we see a greater demand. So we're just trying to really encourage communities to open a market, consider the face-to-face market, because we're seeing that that's the type of market that provides that open air, lots of space, can be done safely, can be done in a touchless manner, and provide public safety as well as vendor safety. So yeah, it's more expensive to operate, but I think most of our markets are working hard to get them moving forward.
And I would imagine, the more people that come out, that's where the farmers are actually going to be able to make it more cost effective than needing to ship everywhere.
Right. And so I think that's what we're seeing, is that if we can get the farmers markets open with a more traditional model, all spaced out, recognizing social distance, masks required, all those safety steps in place, hand washing, sanitation, that's probably the best way to allow that transaction to happen. And that will serve the most number of farmers and probably the most economical way, because they don't have to do any of the extra steps.
The point I would make, though, is that it's not going to be just as economical, because you can't have as many people at one time in a farmer's market. It's all slowed down. You have to have extra staff. I saw a graduation yesterday. If you watched the Obama graduation talk, one local, I think it was local high school did a social distance graduation, and it took from 6 a.m. to like 6 p.m. and one at a time. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. So what you guys have done, and we just have a couple of minutes here. You put together a toolkit so folks can go to the Illinois Farmers Market Association, and I've got that on my website, but it's www.ilfma.org, and the toolkit is for various folks, including you have the Illinois Farmers Market Association Market Manager Guide, the Vendor Guide, the Booth Signage, the Not Ready For Signage, Not Ready For Use Signage. It's like Not Ready For Prime Time. The Volunteer Waiver Form, and the updated Customer Guide, which just got updated a couple of days ago. And I'm going to go through real quick. It's wear a mask, follow CDC recommended hygiene. If you're not feeling well, stay home. Maintain the required 6 feet distance between yourself, market staff, vendors, and other shoppers. And it's really hard to get people to do that, believe it or not. You say this is not a family event. Limit attendance to one member of the household. That's another thing that folks are not going to want to do. Mm-hmm. Pre-order products where possible to speed up transactions. Use credit and debit cards and SNAP link benefits for purchases. If cash is used, do not expect change. Do not touch products at vendor stands and at home. Wash all products thoroughly before using. That's a great list, Janie. We have a minute left, so I'll let you wrap up with this.
Well, I would just encourage people to go to their market. I think in the first 2 weeks of the Evanston market, they had over 2,000 people come through. Average wait time was less than 12 minutes, and it was a great day for the customer to be able to purchase goods and for the farmers to be able to sell what they had. And like I said, if a farmer's market is open, farmers are reporting maybe some of their best sales ever, because the customers that are coming really want that product, and they're really showing their support to the local producers by coming to the market and buying their products there. And we think it can be done safely. And so that's really the goal.
Okay, that's a great way to end it. It can be done safely. Thank you, Janie Maxwell, so much. It's the Mike Nowak Show.
It's going to be really hard.
Yes.
I don't want a lot for August. Know that it's 3 months from now. But the only thing I want to get the kids out of my house. They can't take much more of Zoom. They need actual classrooms. Make my wish come true. All I want for August is school. Yeah, school, baby.
Yeah, welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. We are doing what we call a workaround. We're working.
I've got the duct tape ready.
Thanks to Randall at the studio and Michael, who they cranked up the hamster cage, and the hamsters are going full tilt boogie right now. And I think this is a kind of a Google thing that we're going around Zoom. Peggy, are you with me?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. And the weird thing is the way it's set up on my board right now, my board at home, the only way I can hear you, Peggy, is if I push the button. So I have to talk, and then I push down the button. And so what I should do is put your lovely visage up there so that I can see exactly what's going on, because otherwise.
Except there's a delay.
Okay, well, let me do the keep eating healthy, because let's treat our sponsors right. So you just sit back there, Peggy, and smile about all of this. And I'm writing a very stern letter to the Zoom people after this morning. Will you sign it, Peggy?
Yep. We got the gerbils signing it too.
Okay. Welcome to the Keep Eating Healthy campaign on the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. The folks at Cedar Valley Sustainable Farm tell me, and just like Janie Maxwell said, they've been busier than ever during the COVID crisis. They also say they've met the most amazing people in the business of feeding people. And that's one of the things that's happening. People are coming together during this crisis, especially when it involves getting food to each other. Cedar Valley, as you know, is a meat sea about where the next batch of eggs is going to come from. And of course, all of these products are humanely raised. They feature safe social distancing pickup at various locations in and around Chicago. Now, as we get close to the grilling season, and you couldn't tell it by the rain coming down yeah, she's looking up, I'm looking up, yikes. However, we are getting close to the grilling season, safely in your backyard, of course. You should go to Backyard Patch Herbs. Try their hand-blended herb mixes crafted with homegrown herbs in over 35 varieties for everything from dill dip to salt-free ranch salad dressing. I don't know how you do that, but it's interesting. To marinara and salsa, as well as meat rubs, marinades, and cheese spreads. That's where the grilling comes in. It's a lot of great stuff. Here's the deal. You can use the code MIKE10, M-I-K-E 10, and get a 10% discount. And I'm going to apologize. We should have said this a couple of weeks ago. I didn't realize that we had the 10% discount for Backyard Patch Herbs. So do it today. You're going to get these wonderful herbs, and you're going to get 10% off if you put in the code MIKE10. All right, finally, the folks at Prairie Fruits Farm and Creamery in Champaign remind you that May is American Cheese Month, and this is the last call for their last chance for their fresh chive lemon zest chèvre. See, last week I learned what chèvre was, which means goat cheese, basically. This week I'm learning about bloomies. You could get a bloomie. Do you know what a bloomie is, Peggy?
Yes, I do.
And
it's a soft cheese with a rind, and the longer it's it ages. The rind is going to take on a patina, and it's like camembert and a couple of other styles of cheese.
Well,
more than you wanted to
Okay,
know.
see, I didn't know that. And Kathleen, who's a fan of those cheeses, didn't even know the word was bloomy. So they have a wide assortment of bloomies, all produced thanks to the 110 goats they're milking on their farm. I guess they just finished. Order
Ah.
today to taste their limited selections. Click on the Keep Eating Healthy logo at MikeNowak.net. Help us support these great farms while they support us. Go to MikeNowak.net for more details. Welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki, and here we are limping through.
On the Google machine.
So, I'm sorry, what was that?
We're on the Google machine.
Yeah, whatever that means right now. We're on the Google machine. I'm putting my hand up. I'm offering a cash prize of at least $20 to somebody who can come up with a new platform so that we can do our show from home. Would you kick into that fee as well, Peggy?
Sure.
Okay. And I'm looking out at the rain, and again, I mentioned earlier in the show, and it's hard to explain how much rain we have, and I'm mad at myself because I forgot to empty my rain gauge yesterday, which had like 3.5 inches in, and now it's going to be overflowing by the time I get to it today, I think.
Yeah, I did put out a couple of empty containers yesterday to start catching some of the rain so I can water plants.
Yeah. Well, I've got, it's a gardening tip. One of the things I do is I leave buckets out in the yard, 5-gallon buckets. I've got 2 5-gallon buckets that are completely filled with water right now.
And there's probably ducks swimming in them too.
No, actually the robins would drown in it. I really enjoy watching robins take baths in the bird bath because they take over. They're ridiculous, and they have a lot of fun there. And some of the other birds do too.
Mhm.
And I have to tell you, since we did the bird show last week, I have seen 2 birds in my backyard, 3 counting the one I was on the front porch. I was on the phone with you. What was that? It was
Goldfinch.
all right. So I saw the goldfinch in front, went in the back, saw an orange-crowned warbler. Hello?
I not having seen it, it could have been. It's migrating through.
Okay. No, you didn't see it, so you don't have to confirm that. Okay. I'm
So I'm
just
saying it
saying.
could have
I
been.
probably. And then there was another one, and I have to send you a photo. It's a dark bird, completely dark, but it's not a crow, and it's not a black. I don't think it's a blackbird. It's very unusual marking, but very dark. And I know you're going to say, well, I can't tell from that what it is, but I'm going to send you a photo, and maybe you can help me figure it out.
And I had a wood thrush 2 days ago. I could hear it in the house. Running outside, posted to Facebook and said, "Okay, birding friends, what do we have here?"
And did they
It's a
come
wood
through for you?
thrush. Yes. Kelsey Shaw came through.
All right. We got to get out of here. The Mike Nowak Show, Peggy Malecki. Who knows what platform we'll be on when we come back after the news? So please stick around and bear with us. This is life in the 21st century. In fact, our next guest will probably be on the phone. If you're listening and listening to a struggle, we apologize. It is a technical, crazy day here worldwide. And some of you are listening to this elsewhere. And I know Rapid City, South Dakota will be getting this next Saturday.
And Zoom will still be down.
What was that, Peggy?
And Zoom will still be down.
Probably will be. And they'll say, oh, was Zoom down last Sunday when they were doing the show? Oh, well, okay. And so we're just dealing with that and getting through it the best we can. We love you all. We love your patience. We're glad you're with us. We've still got a couple of great guests today. Don't worry about it. We'll get through it. And speaking of guests, today on Playtime with Bill Turk and Carrie Kendall? Oh, did you go away, Peggy? Okay. Well, today on Playtime with Bill Turk and Carrie Kendall, Bill and Carrie welcome Chicago reader publisher Tracy Baim. They'll also hear from author Miles Harvey on his forthcoming book, The King of Confidence. And Chicago's Grammy-nominated Ray Grant will be their musical guest. Plus, Jack Nader, an incredibly talented makeup artist, will be joining in on Zoom. And that might not be happening. I'm going to warn them right now. If Bill and Carrie are listening, he might not be on Zoom. He's supposed to be on for the full length of the show, completing a glam look from beginning to end. Wow. This Zoom situation is certainly going to mess with that. And as always, Lainey Peterson with the Weekly Theater Report and your Blame Bill. Hey, you know what, Peggy? I blame Bill for this.
This is a blame Bill moment. Yes.
Absolutely. Bill, I blame you. Playtime with Bill Turk and Carrie. Wait, Bill Turk and
Carrie Kendall.
Thank you. Today from 1 to 3 Central.
Woohoo!
And then today on the Elizabeth Alfano Show, Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams explains the incredible work he is doing in schools and hospitals to bring in plant-based meals and implement meatless Mondays for public health and safety. It's real easy to do right now because there's nobody there. Plus, Elizabeth counts down her top tips. It says top tips for eating with non-vegans. You'll want to take notes, so join in from 3 to 4 Central on the Elizabeth Alfano Show with
Elizabeth Alfano.
That's the correct answer. Very good. Okay.
I was paying
this is Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. I can't hear anything, so I'm just keeping an eye on the clock here. Okay. We got like a minute and a half before we break. And
well, I think the interesting
and all I
thing
can say is thank goodness, because I'm going to have a sip of coffee and maybe half a deviled egg here, and then and get us going again. I'm at a loss. I'm sorry. I clicked that off, and I have to do this little switching here back and forth, and so I can't let my brain get ahead of my mouth here, Peggy. So we're on the Zoom meeting, and it's raining. And what could possibly be worse than this?
Whack, whack, whack.
Although I see Dennis Warnecke there on the
Dennis
the
has
machine.
gotten in. Yes. Well, I think the good news is it's still late May. The trees are almost all in full leaf. The flowers are beautiful. The rain's helping our gardens. It's time to start planting. Time to start going to the farmers markets. And
we're going to talk to Dennis Warnecke from
You're on the Mike
Tainio.
Nowak Show.
You can hear Dennis too. This is just
Lock the door, hit the floor. It's the family lockdown boogie. Incarcerated, blood-related. Family lockdown boogie. Dancing queen in quarantine. Family lockdown boogie. We can't go out, so we're all about family lockdown boogie. What a treat it is.
all right. Welcome to the Family Lockdown Boogie on the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. It's the weirdest situation ever. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, never mind. I'll just do it this way. I'm still experimenting with all these buttons and trying to make something work so I can hear myself while we hear everybody else, but it doesn't matter.
My video is through Google. My audio is through Zoom.
Is it really? Oh, that's
Yes.
just so weird. Okay. And we're very pleased to have on our show today that guy with the hat on who claims he's not a tech guy, and he's waving that. And Dennis, is Warnecke, is that how you pronounce your last name?
That is correct.
And where are you this morning?
I am in beautiful Spokane, Washington.
Fantastic. See, it's not Seattle. Peggy said Seattle, but it's that. She told me the other day. I was thinking, no, they're very different. And people in Washington State, I know they're very protective of the part of the state they're in, because the eastern part of the state is very different from the western part of the state.
Well, and we look at it, there's really only one part of the state, and that's Eastern Washington.
Okay, you get yourself a ding. And Dennis is a leader in, well, biological agriculture, horticulture. You've done golf course management in the Western United States and Canada, and you've been doing this for a long time, haven't you?
Yeah, I started back in about 1987, 1989.
And you work with a company called Tainio Biologicals, and you can find all the links on my website, MikeNowak.net, MikeNowak.net. And I can tell you, two people are really happy right now that we got our tech issues at least put together with chewing gum and chicken wire. And that is Karen and Steve Wenzel, because there we go. They're with Blazing Star Inc., a great sponsor for the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki, in full disclosure. And that's kind of why Dennis is here today, because they sell products by Tainio. And Tainio is spelled, it sounds like TINY-O, but that's not it. No, it's TAINIO. And that's, I got it wrong before, but it's Swedish, isn't it, Dennis?
Finnish, actually.
Finnish, okay. I knew it's Scandinavian of some kind.
Yep.
And tell us that you told me the story the other day, which is really interesting, about how it got started. You could briefly do that. I just think it's a pretty interesting story.
Yeah, well, Bruce Tainio is the developer of our products. And back in 1985, Bruce was a seed geneticist. And he found that he wasn't creating hardier plants, he was creating hardier insects and bees. And example I will give you is he would create a wheat hybrid that was resistant to rust. Then a few years down the road, that rust would mutate and then attack that wheat plant. And so we see this with herbicides, we see it with insecticides, we see it with fungicides, and we see it in plants, that the disease pathogens are actually mutating or changing to attack the plant. And so in 1987, Bruce developed Tainio Biologicals, and looking at biological inoculums and how through the soil we can enhance plant health and reduction to environmental stress.
Simple story. But a very important one, because it's about changing the culture that we set up, 150 years ago, basically, when we discovered the properties of NPK. And anybody who's a gardener or a farmer knows that stands for nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And as a friend of mine explained to me years ago, maybe 15 years ago, he said, when we got to NPK, everybody said, done. We're done. We got it fixed. We know what to do. We just throw the right amount of NPK in the soil. You can grow anything you want, and we can do this forever, and we can feed the world. But that's not exactly how it works, is it, Dennis?
No, it isn't. I recommend everybody get a soil analysis. It's kind of like we're talking about here, NPK, because that's what we all believe, that's all we needed. But what I truly find is excesses cause a greater problem than deficiencies. And we need to change our mindset that we're not feeding the plant, we're feeding the soil. If we feed the soil, the plant will take care of itself. And there's some really exciting research coming out there by like Dr. James White, who talks about the rhizophagy cycle, rhizo meaning root, phagy meaning root eating. And how it will actually farm microbes within that soil environment to do a specific function. It'll take those microbes into its root, digest them, it harvests all the nutrition out of that microbial body, and in some cases that microbe dies, and in other cases it will spit it back through the roots into the soil, and that process will happen all over again. It's really exciting. So we shouldn't feed the plant, we need to feed our soil, and the plant will take care of itself.
And as Peggy and I have become fond of saying on the show, and you may join me for this, Peggy, it's the biology, stupid.
Stupid.
And we don't mean to call you stupid. We just want to make people aware that for the longest time, we didn't even consider the biology of the soil. And now that's what the Tainio products are doing. And this is why Karen and Steve at Blazing Star recommend them. They took a cornfield that was completely depleted and they turned it into a thriving native plant area. And how does this benefit the average gardener? I know you consult with farmers a lot and growers, and you work in orchards. You've talked about golf courses. I know golf course managers, and you probably do too now, who are experimenting with compost and trying to get more biology. And for years, all you could think of is the golf course is the biggest wasteland of all. There's no life in that soil. It's not true anymore because those guys work for that. So take away the big guys, the little guy like me in my backyard. How do I benefit from Tainio products?
Well, Tainio has developed products which are easy to use for everybody from the home gardener of baskets on your deck to a 500 or 600 or 5,000 square foot garden, all the way up to 1,000, 10,000 square foot acreage of corn or wheat. So we have products that are designed to fit in all of those scenarios. The great part about that,
containers as well.
Yeah, you said containers.
Yeah,
okay.
Container plants on the side of your deck. We always have to look at biology being the way to get healthy nutrition to the plant. Like I was talking about earlier, let the plant decide what it wants. Let's not force feed it with what we think it wants. And that's the key issue here is the biology will naturally make nutrition available. We can talk about how they do that based on soil pH. We can talk about based on soil structure. But the foundation of all of this is the microbial community. That's what makes it all available. So home gardeners, they can easily dust their seeds in furrow at the time of planting. They can use watering cans and water buckets and mix it up with the food source for that biology, a fish, a kelp, a humate. And what we want to do, again, is we want to farm the biology or build that biology within our soil environment. And when I talk about that, is we're planting seeds with these inoculants. We've found a very diverse group of naturally occurring beneficial bacteria, plant growth promoting rhizobacteria, which we can re-inoculate the soil with, and it increases overall plant health. It's just really exciting where this is going. And we find that we have so much better soil health and plant health and how it's changing the environment of what we grow.
And I got one of your brochures here, and you might be able to see that on the screen if you're watching on whatever platform we're on right now, because I have no idea. I've long lost track of that. And
that's the BioGarden.
Yeah, BioGarden products, garden products, including soil conditioners and foliar fertilizers, biocaps, biopellets, another foliar spray called Leaf Zyme. What's the advantage of a foliar spray? Because we're talking about soil here and soil biology. So why do you have foliar products?
Well, as much as 80% of nutrition can be taken in to the plant from the leaf structure. Michigan State University has done some records. Dr. Jerry Hatfield with the NRCS, they all have done research, and Bruce knew this a long time ago, that plants can absorb nutrition through the tissue. And so we can't ignore the tissue of the plant. It's as important as feeding the soil because it's a two-way street. Nutrition moves up the plant to grow the plant, but it also moves back down in the way of sugars to feed the soil microbes within that digestive system within our soil environment. So it's another way, whenever we have a plant that is not responding, maybe because of a soil tie-up, it's not available, we have a deficiency, foliar nutrition is a great way to make a correction. I almost kind of call it the IV of the plant world. If you have nutritional deficiency, you go to the hospital, they're not going to put a big plate of food in front of you and say, eat this. They basically give you an IV, your body gets it, they send you home and they say, okay, eat better now. The same thing holds true with the plant. We can make small corrections in a very quick process with foliar nutrition.
Okay, Peggy, I can hear you typing away. That's pounding pretty good here.
I can't hear it at all. Sorry.
Okay, but I can see. There we go. We're talking to Dennis Warnecke from Tainio Biologicals. You can get them at blazing-star.com. Some people say dash, blazing-star.com. Yes, Peggy.
So I had a question on the foliar nutrients. As tomato plants sometimes start drooping a lot into the season, will this help?
Yeah, and all of that has to do with balanced nutrition, cell development within the tissue of that plant, cell structure, and what forms of nutrition we're feeding that plant, and we're not creating any excesses. So if we want a tomato plant that is healthy and vibrant and under the heat of stress, it doesn't droop and weep, we need to have calcium. We need to have that cell development. We want a plant that continually flowers. We have to balance those nutrition. And that's really how foliar can help enhance what we're doing within our soil properties.
Okay, we only have a couple of minutes left. Let's say you're a backyard gardener. Let's say you're a farmer. Let's say you've been treating your soil with chemicals and heavy doses of nitrogen and whatever else you're putting in there for years. How long does it take you to make this kind of transition, and how do the Tainio products help you do that?
Well, you can make that transition starting today, because we can't make up for the last 50 years of agriculture in one day, but we have to start today in order to make that difference. And the way to do that is through feeding the microbial community within your soil environment and re-inoculating that for a diversity so that we have all the players on the field. As we do that, we'll start to change soil structure, we'll start to change plant health, we'll start to change nutrient availability, we'll start to make adjustments based on pH. All of these things are critical in order to heal the soil. And basically, we'll start to digest a lot of those impurities that are in that soil environment through microbial bioremediation.
That's really interesting. You make a really good point. Your chemicals are typically not going to improve your soil structure, but biology will do that pretty much every time, won't it?
That is. Every time you do a biological inoculum and a food to support it, you're doing something to better that soil environment and better that plant health. Anytime we go down the road of using a herbicide or a fungicide or a insecticide, we're getting rid of the problem, but we have not done anything to fix why it was there.
And you mentioned with the help of sugars or fertilizers, your biologicals are to be used with other organic products, aren't they?
Yeah, they're designed. Steve, our chief science officer, has designed that BioGarden line to be a complete package. I mean, this is a wonderful product that you can use as a soil inoculum, a foliar nutrition. It has a little bit of everything there, and it's designed to enhance what the grower is naturally doing.
Well, Dennis Warnecke, I want to thank you so much, and for putting up with all the technical snafus, and for just being there for us. And you can go to blazing-star.com for more information. They'll connect you to Tainio. All I can say is, again, thank you and good luck in the future, and I hope we talk again soon.
I hope so. Thank you very much, Peggy. Thanks for all your help in getting here today.
It's about the light.
Don't touch your face, take vitamin C. Be a good girl and just wash everything. For real, don't feel, don't let germs grow. Do what you're told. Stay at home, please don't go anywhere anymore. Just say no, please don't go.
This is more than one song that has a Christmas theme in it that has to do with COVID. And now, see, we're combining all the holidays. And now, you know, there are a lot of people saying, there was a song I heard that says, it's beginning to feel a lot like Christmas. And basically the idea is that everybody's at home in their pajamas and we're all drinking before noon. So there you go.
Oh, dear. Where's the eggnog?
We're very pleased to have Sean Ruane on the Google/Zoom/phone/Facebook/ whatever it is today. And he is the new, brand spanking new executive director of the Advocates for Urban Agriculture that's in Chicago. Let me get a little ding there. You get 2 dings. And as we had him on like for a really short time, several weeks ago, he said, I got to make this announcement. And I said, you'll have like 30 seconds, go. And it wasn't quite that bad, but today you've got a little more time here. I wanted to make sure we got to talk to you and you got to explain yourself. when you were on the show before, you were talking about an grant program. It was called the COVID-19 Farmer Support Grant, round 1, because you didn't know if there was going to be a round 2. And at the time you were on the show, it was like the day before the deadline. Now they've got a little more time for round 2, which I believe is May 29th, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And at the time, you were giving small grants of $500 to $1,000 to Chicago farm businesses who had been impacted by the pandemic. That seemed like a small amount of money. How did that go?
Yeah, it went really well. We really just tried to respond quickly. That was our goal. We had talked with so many different farmers operating businesses in Chicago and, had heard time and time again that they were in need of supplies of cash just to support different things, whether it's additional supplies, market adaptations, labor support. And so we knew they weren't huge grants, but we knew that it would help in small ways for a lot of folks. So we were able to award 32 grants to farm businesses in the Chicagoland area, almost all of those being $1,000 grants.
Wow.
And so we were really happy with how that went. And I don't know that I mentioned this the last time I was on, but we raised money in partnership with Slow Food Chicago throughout the month of April to support that grant effort. And because of the success of that fundraising campaign, we're now able to open up a second round of grants with larger amounts available to both farms and community gardens, as well as collaborative projects. So it's a little bit more of an expansive opportunity.
Yeah, it is great. I mean, I was stunned when I saw that farm businesses can now apply for grants of $2,500. Community gardens apply for grants of $1,000. And in addition, up to 5 entities can apply for a $10,000 grant to support a collaborative project that aims to create greater access to locally sourced food in Chicagoland communities. Can I have my radio show enter for trying to get that grant? We're trying to help communities and farmers too. But seriously, this is an indication of how well the first round went, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, not only were we really pleased with the number of grants that we were able to award out, but also just, I know that this is a really challenging time for a lot of people right now in a variety of different ways. But we had hoped when we opened the fundraising campaign that people who are maybe in a position to contribute would be able to do so. And we were just completely overwhelmed by the support we got, people really recognizing the importance of locally produced food. So the fact that we're able to open up this second round, larger grant amounts, kind of more diversified applications, we're really grateful for all of the support we got from around the city. And, we're grateful that we have the opportunity as an organization to provide this opportunity for farmers and gardeners.
And your partners, you have to thank as well, in addition to AUA, Advocates for Urban Agriculture, you mentioned Slow Food Chicago and Food Land Opportunity, FLO. I have to admit, I'm kind of surprised that it seemed like you ramped up very quickly, but were quite successful in getting your pitch out and getting contributions. How did you do that?
Well, yeah, really, Flow, without Food Land Opportunity, the support of them, we wouldn't even have been able to launch the first round in the first place. And they're just a great partner of ours on a regular basis. So huge thanks to them. We just really tried to put other things to the side and prioritize working on this so that we could turn around reviewing the applications and getting the funds out as quickly as possible, right? Because it takes time to review grant applications and it takes time to do all that administrative work. So we really just tried to prioritize this program so that we could get funds to farmers by the middle of May. And we were able to do that. And we kind of have the same mindset with this upcoming grant, right? Mm-hmm. By having the applications due by May 29th, that gives us a few weeks to review those applications and get funds out to people by the middle of June, because that's when people need money. They need it now.
This is City of Chicago and the collar counties?
Yes.
And I was just going to say, I saw the list of some of the winners. And I imagine that even $500, you said you were mainly able to give out $1,000 grants. So $1,000 is a big deal at this time, isn't it? Have you heard you have any particular success stories that you want to tell us?
Yeah, we've gotten we've heard from a lot of the farm businesses that have received the grant. I mean, just like, they're obviously just now putting the money into use. But just like the overwhelming gratitude that people had for us responding quickly and getting funds to them, just, saying that this was going to help them to shift their market to be able to do more CSA shares, or that they were going to be able to afford the supplies that they were planning to purchase at the beginning of the season that they were now worried that they might not be able to afford. Getting additional labor support, right? Just like all of those key pieces that are essential to running a farm. And I think, again, $500 to $1,000 might not seem like a lot, but as we all know, farms run on very tight budgets, and particularly urban farms. That kind of money goes a long way. And one of the goals of this grant too was to try to make the funds available to businesses that don't normally have access to grant funds, right? Because they're not a 501c3 nonprofit. And so for a lot of businesses, it was maybe their first time receiving a grant like this, which has been easy for them.
Yeah, and let me, because we want to move on to one more topic before we let you go. Yeah, it's the COVID-19 Farmer Support Grant Round 2. You can find the link at mikenovak.net, or you can go to auachicago.org, and you'll find it there. It's right up front. It's easy to see, and you've got till May 29th, and you might get $2,500 for your farm. If you're a community garden, community gardens getting $1,000 is remarkable. And that's just great stuff. And again, $10,000 grants are possible. So do it today. All right. Meanwhile, it's pouring rain here today, but you want to talk water issues. What's up, Sean?
Yeah, and quick, just one other thing I want to add about the grants before we move on is there's a key distinction between the first and the second round, which is in the second round, all Illinois farm businesses who are serving Chicagoland communities with their primary markets are allowed to apply. Whereas the first round, you had to be operational in Chicagoland communities, whereas now it could be if you're from outside the collar counties, but your primary markets are farmers markets in Chicago or restaurants in Chicago, you can apply for the second round of the grant. So
would that then apply to Wisconsin, Michigan, and Indiana farms?
Good question. So only Illinois farms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now water.
Yeah. So water. So we, over the last couple of years, obviously we're really grateful that the city of Chicago has recognized all of the different positive contributions of urban agriculture in the city. Job creation, healthy food access, green space, all the environmental benefits. And so, with the current situation that we're in right now because of COVID, I think we've all kind of recognized, and we've seen this reflected in the uptick in CSA shares around the country, that growing food locally is now more important than ever. And so there's all of these different programs happening around the city to try to put more power into the hands of local food producers to get food out to people in need for that kind of emergency food response. The challenge of that right now is that there's a lot of gardeners and farmers around the city that don't even have access to water. And so none of that is even possible, right, if they don't first have access to water. So recently, the Department of Water Management released a memo that imposed some new policies that have made it more challenging, particularly for gardens, but also for farms to have access to water through hydrants. And so we've been talking with the city, and we're working with the city right now to try to create both some immediate and long-term solutions.
And I will tell you, you've got 30 seconds to wrap this up. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess my appeal would be, if you are a garden or a farm who in the Chicagoland area that has been impacted by this issue, we've been reached out to by a number of, probably over 24 gardens and farms throughout the city, letting us know about this problem. But if this is something that's directly affecting you, please let us know so we can continue to advocate for you in our conversations with the city, so we can ensure that local food producers have affordable access to water.
All right. Sean, Ruane, thank you so much. I hope folks take part in the COVID-19 Farmer Support Grant Program. They get back to you about the water. We're going to see you in person someday. I appreciate you being here. It's the Mike Nowak.
Go hungry in this time of crisis. We're all in this together.
Move. What?
Welcome back.
Did the music stop? Is it
Yes,
gone?
the music stopped. You're on.
So we're on. All right, we're live. Welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Someday somebody will explain that to us. Are you sure? Are we here? I have no idea. I can hear you, but I can't hear anything else. Okay, welcome to the Keep Eating Healthy campaign on the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. The folks at Cedar Valley Sustainable Farm, CSA, tell me they've been busier than ever during the COVID crisis. They also say they've met the most amazing people in the business of feeding people. Good for them. Cedar Valley is a meat CSA. You get beef, pork, chicken, and eggs, all humanely raised, and they feature safe social distancing pickup at various locations in and around Chicago. Now, as we get close to the grilling season, it ain't happening today as we look outside. However, you're going to do it in your backyard safely. And you should go to Backyard Patch Herbs. Try their hand-blended herb mixes crafted with homegrown herbs. They have 35 varieties and it's everything from dill dip to salt-free ranch salad dressing to marinara and salsa, as well as meat rubs, marinades, and cheese spreads. Get those on the grill. Use the code MIKE10, M-I-K-E 10, 10, and get a 10% discount. That is at Backyard Patch Herbs. And then the folks at Prairie Fruits Farm and Creamery in Champaign remind you that May is American Cheese Month, and this is their last call for their fresh chive lemon zest chèvre. Or get a Bloomy. We found out what a Bloomy is in the first hour. It's a cheese rind found on soft cheese like brie and others. They have a wide assortment of Bloomies, all produced thanks to the 110. Can you imagine 110 goats being milked on the farm?
That's a lot of goats.
That's a lot of goats, and goats, as I say, are cool. Order today to taste their limited selections. Click on the Keep Eating Healthy logo at MikeNowak.net. Help us support these great farms while they support us. Go to MikeNowak.net for more details. Let's bring in meteorologist Rick DeMaio. Rick, I am building an ark starting right at 11 o'clock today. Is that going to be a good thing?
You know, real quickly, why is that whenever you look at a goat, they look like they're pissed off at you?
No, they you know what? They don't look like they look like they don't care, basically, a goat, I think.
Yeah. It's like, you're not going to touch that, are you? Right, they're like cats. It's like, yeah, I get it, right? You have to build an ark. You know what? You don't have to build an ark, Mike and Peg. Just use the one you've had the last 2 Mays, right?
Yeah, I've got chipmunks and kayaks right now.
There you go.
As long as they're life preserver, I think they'll be okay.
What is going on here, Rick? We've got 3 Mays in a row now where the skies just open up.
Yeah, you know, it's pretty amazing because the pattern, which was basically a kind of a dry, warm one for the winter, all of a sudden became really, really wavy in late March. And again, it pulled in tons of subtropical moisture from the Pacific Ocean, a lot of tropical moisture from the Gulf of Mexico. In fact, I was just doing some research, and, you know, subtropical storm Arthur just formed. And do you know, guys, this is the 7th year in a row that we have had a tropical storm form in the month of May. That's unprecedented. I went back and looked at data, Peg, for about the last 100 years. It's actually pretty easy to do. You just look up May tropical storms. But what's also noteworthy, in the last 17 years, we've had 12 tropical storms form in the month of May. So even though we had a couple of years of aberrations there, the warmer waters of the Gulf of Mexico have been feeding and fueling not only the heavy rains we have here in the Midwest, but also leading to the development of tropical storms early. Now, most of those tend to kind of form east of the Atlantic seaboard. But what we've seen happen is as those storms begin to push northward, just like what happens in September and October, they tend to block the pattern a little bit. So what occurs is these systems that generally tend to be a little bit more progressive in the month of March, in late April and May, you generally tend to get these slow-moving patterns that produce heavy rain. It would be really interesting if a graduate student wants to go back and look at the development of areas of low pressure in the tropics that basically push the jet stream kind of in a bulging way northward along the East Coast, tends to enhance the slowing down of systems in the Midwest, and in addition to that, add to the ability to get long, persistent periods of heavy rain. And we've seen it now 3 years in a row.
And you sent us a text just a few minutes ago, and I'm kind of stunned by your statement. You say rain has had no impact on planting, and the reason I'm stunned by it is I got a call from our friend Pat Skatch yesterday, and he's got a friend in Kankakee County, a farmer who's corn and soybeans, 5,000 acres, and he did finish his
underwater.
Well, yeah, he finished the planting just before the rains hit, and now he's worried that the seed will be displaced, and he can't really go back in and plant again because it might come up, it might not. You can't have competing seeds in a field like that. So I'm interested in your statement and why you said that.
Well, let's talk about the statement. The statement is acres planted, right? So you can have acres and acres planted, but it doesn't mean that heavy rain may not destroy what you had planted. You follow me there?
Yeah. Okay. So it's they got it in the ground because there was enough dry weather to do that, and now all of this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the crop may not come up, but it's planted.
Correct. Yeah. So when you look at the numbers, that crop report that came out shows that as of May 10th in the year 2019, the state of Illinois had 11% corn planted. This year, it's 68. That's a lot. That's a big, big difference. And part of that is due to the fact that we really just recently, in the last 2 weeks, have had most of this rain in the month of May. The rain that we had in March and April was kind of few and far between, which is one of the, and also it was quite warm, even though we had some cool spells. Those cool spells were kind of brief, and those really aren't going to impact farmers from a standpoint of getting their crop in. So when you look at the statement, impact of planting, so far in the state of Illinois, it has not been at all anywhere compared to what we had last year. Now, in Kankakee County, they had about 4.5 to 5 inches of rain the other day. There was actually 2 different bands of rain that moved through, one to the south and one well to the north. In fact, it went right over O'Hare. And this rain that's coming at us now is probably going to give us another, I should say, an additional 1.5 to maybe 3 inches. So I would not be surprised when this system is all said and done. We'll probably be looking at close to 6.5, maybe 7 inches of rain for the month of May. And that'll put us on track at least to be ahead of what we were last May when we were at a record for the month, and the year before when we were at the second wettest ever.
All right, you got like 10 seconds for a forecast.
All right, rain today, rain tomorrow morning, and then after that, Tuesday through Saturday, dry weather with a slow warming trend. I got it in.
All right, talk to you next week. Until next time, Peggy, go green or
go home.
I slept through the whole thing. Well, you didn't miss much.